Welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. My name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. Our interviews are mainly recorded to be transcribed, but every now and again we release the audio in a series we call Post-Burnout.com interviews. If you enjoy what we do, be sure to subscribe. In this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, we speak with Waterford musician Caela Murphy, professionally known as DOLLFACE. We discuss her latest single at time of recording, Love Me Better, as well as her other songs released thus far. Additionally, we also talk about the Waterford music scene, her history as a musician, how DOLLFACE differs from her other music, being in BIMM, writing film scores, getting personal with her music, and more. The first thing I want to ask is when it comes to your background, kind of like getting into music. I mean, I believe you started like at a very young age, I believe you started kind of like with traditional music, right? And kind of like learning tin whistle and so on. I was wondering if maybe you could just talk a little bit about kind of like your background as a musician, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, of course. So my parents got me into trad music when I was very young. I was about 6. Um, and I started playing the concertina and the tin whistle, along with my dad taught me how to play the bodhrán. And I used to go to a lot of cultists, a lot of sessions, and I was part of what you called the butterfly band from Waterford when they were first starting out. I was one of the first members, and yeah, I didn't stop really playing on that scene till I was about 16, actually. 16 is when I decided to, you know, try something different, really.
What I was wondering is like kind of like is it went back from like your childhood. I mean, back then was there the kind of aspiration to be a musician someday, like a professional musician someday, or was it something that you just did as a hobby and it kind of eventuated into what it is now?
Oh, well, I always wanted to be a famous musician, I suppose, because I discovered the piano when I was very, very young, age 6, actually. Again, my mother and my sister were at keyboard lessons, and I came in at the back and I started playing on one of the keyboards, and the teacher said to my mom, "Oh, you should probably buy her a keyboard." So that's what they did, and I had an interest in the likes of Mozart and Beethoven. And I used to listen to, the now 67s and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And I thought, I want to be like that. So from the very get-go, I wanted to be someone more with music.
hmm And then when do you actually start kind of releasing your own music? I believe you started under your own name, right? So you started under Caela Murphy.
I did, yeah. I started writing my own songs, like to play them live when I was about 13.
hmm
And I didn't release my first single till I was 16, actually. I was 16 when I released my first one. The first release I ever put out was Lost at Sea, and it was a song in aid of homelessness after I met a homeless man in Dublin. That was the
hmm
very, very first one I ever put out. Then I had, under my own name, was Gravedigger, and I was 17 or 18 in that. So yeah, I didn't really start releasing till much later on.
And you're in the Warford music scene, kind of, right? So like, what was the kind of music scene there like? In terms of like growing up, like, was there like many shows you could go to, or like what was the kind of
Yeah,
scene there?
there was a lot of youth shows. So I started off in the Manor, which was a youth center in Waterford, and they did a lot of open mics and a lot of kind of event gigs, and that's where I started out. And then also in Tramore, in the town that I live in, they have a place called Club Music, and they did the same thing. So it was Waterford music scene for youth is fantastic. It's very supportive. Um, and in general, like the scene is kind of so small that all the musicians know each other. So you kind of help each other out by opening each other's gigs and things like that. So it's a very comfortable scene to be in.
When going back to the music we were talking about that you're releasing your own name, it was kind of a lot more kind of piano focused sort of ballady kind of music. And then when did you kind of transition from that to the kind of more pop oriented Dollface then?
Um, I transitioned to that about a year ago. Yeah, about a year ago. And the reason for it was really I didn't want to have my personal name attached to my music because I feel my music is so personal that I wanted some sort of disconnect, you know, because I think people, if you use your own name, and, you know, I can't handle a lot of judgment, really. I'm very sensitive. So having people say, oh, I don't like Caela Murphy, I was like,
Yeah.
that's a little bit too personal for my liking. So I wanted to create something new. And the music itself hasn't really changed. It's just it's just my journey as an artist from when I was going under Caela Murphy. I was younger. I didn't really know how to record and experiment. So it just so happens that I'm experimenting with new things under a different name, do you know?
One thing I'm actually kind of interested in, because you were mentioning like your music is so like personal, which it definitely shines through. You're kind of mentioning the kind of like the music scene in Waterford and how kind of supportive and how much of a kind of connective network it is. From your perspective, is it more daunting to expose personal feelings in front of like your peers and people you know, or is it more daunting in front of like strangers and people who aren't familiar with you?
I think it's more daunting when people know you. Like strangers won't have that much judgment on you, and they'll nearly be more open to what you're talking about because they don't know who you are. But people that you might have a past with, or that they know you personally, they might see it a little bit more critical than
Sure.
a stranger would.
Yeah, there's kind of I think potential to maybe like downplay or something like that. You know what I mean? When you're trying to like pour your emotions out, and
Mm.
whether intentionally or unintentionally, I think some people can kind of be a little dismissive of kind of your emotions. I don't know if you've ever felt that when it comes to kind of your music.
Definitely, definitely. And you know, the music industry is such a competitive place. It's very
Mhm.
competitive and it's very clicky. And I even find, as much as I do enjoy the Waterford music scene, there is clickiness and competitiveness. So sometimes musicians, you know, if you are not their cup of tea, because I would be speaking a lot about deeper emotions and experiences compared to maybe a musician that is making up folklore, they could be a little bit, I don't know, not triggered, but very, very critical about what I'm doing. You know, they're thinking, oh, it's so sad, it's so personal, you know, people want something to dance to. So there is that competitiveness there going on where they will judge you. And since they know you personally, they, you know, it's criticism that you're not really asking for, but you receive anyway.
Yeah, and kind of like when, as you're mentioning, the kind of like by putting sort of the doll face kind of moniker to it, you're kind of like making the this sort of disconnecting it a little bit, like from like personal criticism in a way. But yeah, the music itself, like when you listen to it, I think like because the three tracks you've released thus far, I mean, they're very different sounding. I think they're it really gives a great like kind of taste of your versatility. I think, and but I think that is kind of the connective tissue between them, especially like on Disorder, your second single. It was like it was very just like, you know, screw you for trying to tell me not to sing about this. Like it seems like very targeted at kind of like music industry expectations and standards of like, you know, just make, you know, pop music and just be happier and all this. So yeah, I was wondering, like, do you find that's still something that is present in your music? And do you feel now that you're not going under your own name, do you feel kind of a little more comfortable kind of like going, just being open, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, like, you know, I am in BIMM, and in BIMM, we do talk about stage characters and your whole persona and everything to do with it. And I feel so much more comfortable hiding nearly behind DOLLFACE as an alter ego than to be using my personal name. Um, but yeah, sorry, what was the other part that you mentioned there?
I was wondering, do you think it kind of it brings like a sense of freedom to kind of open up in a public sphere, I guess?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I also think it allows me to create a character. I don't have to be Caela Murphy. I don't have
Mhm.
to be who I personally am. I can create a whole new identity. And with that, I can do whatever type. And I find that helps me be able to mix in all different genres. Do you know, because I'm able to be like, well, Dollface is not just one genre. Yes, the theme relates throughout, but the genres can change. And I'm comfortable with doing that because that is the character. Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, what's interesting is your first single Dollface was full, and I think it was kind of an interesting transitional song from your from the music you release under your own name. Because like the music you release in your name, like I was mentioned, was kind of like piano driven, sort of ballady, kind of folky songs, and I think like there was an incorporation of more pop with Full, and but it kind of, I don't know, it kind of acclimatized you a little bit to the transition. I was wondering, was that kind of an intentional decision when it came to releasing your first single, or was that just something that was kind of like a happy accident?
It was intentional because I popular culture, I feel it's difficult to get into, but it's also very easy to,
Hmm.
create a very simplistic melody, simplistic piano ballad, something that's catchy or just relatable. And I wanted my first single to be something that would reach more of an audience than a 10-minute song would do. Something that's short and melodic to kind of grab people's attention and to let them know, okay, I'm on this scene now. Instead of something that was overcomplicated or a genre that would be much harder to get into, like releasing a 6-minute song. I can't expect people's attention spans to last that long on my first single when I'm not known.
Yeah. And actually, then when you kind of went to Disorder, then like there's the incorporation then of kind of like hip hop beats. I was wondering then, like, would you kind of have that kind of like kind of like once you've kind of established yourself, I guess, as a new presence with Dollface, like then how do you kind of go like, okay, this is what we're going to follow it up with?
Well, that song was actually written when I was under Caela Murphy, but it was remastered, and I felt like when I did first release it under Caela Murphy, it didn't get the engagement or the presence that it deserved. So I decided to release that under Dollface because the message that is in that song is so personal to me. It means so much that I thought I don't really care as much about the streams on it or anything. I just want people when they come to my Spotify profile and they turn on that song that they know what they're in for. I
Yeah,
don't want people to be switching songs, being like, why is it so deep? Why is it so depressing? I want that song to be there. So when you listen to it, this is what you're getting yourself into.
yeah, and actually, then it kind of brings us to your new song then, and so it's "Love Me Better," and I think like I don't know, like I think they see like a full sort of transition. It's interesting because I think it really incorporates. It's still incorporating piano, but I think like there is that. I believe you worked with the producer Richard Power, if I'm correct. So I was wondering, like, what do you think that kind of like brought working with like an external producer, and do you think this is kind of like indicative of your sound going forward?
Yes, I do. I definitely do. But I feel I'm going to experiment with a little bit more rock, 2000s emo, nearly even metal. Currently, I'm trying to get in contact with a vocal teacher to learn how to do screamo and use my voice in a different
Nice.
way. So,
Yeah.
I like, yeah, Love Me Better. I decided to do that because I needed a song that people could dance to, something that was a bit more upbeat. I didn't want everything to be the exact same. Although the message is positive and even slightly depressing in some parts, it's staying true, but I wanted something a bit more upbeat. But my
Yeah.
next song that I'm putting out, which hasn't been announced yet, but it is a ballad, but at the end there is a shredding guitar, electric guitar solo. And then after that, I have another song, and we're going into the metal scene. So Dollface, it's not one genre. I cannot say that I will ever stick to electro pop or anything. It will always change.
What's interesting then is because like at the moment you've been releasing music as a series of singles, and do you find then like from your perspective like releasing songs as singles offers you that kind of freedom of experimentation?
Yes.
Because like if you were to release like sorry yeah, because if you were to release like a full record or even EP, I mean there's an expectation I think with any EP or music to have somewhat of a kind of continuity between songs, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Albums you see as well. Everyone is a critic, I suppose, and I'm not someone that would delve too deep into the layout of an artist or band's album. I wouldn't really analyze it, but there are people out there that would analyze your albums, thinking, why did they open up with this song? I don't like the transition between this and that. And by putting out singles, like you said, it does allow me freedom. It allows me to just put out a song, doesn't matter what genre it is, doesn't matter what's going on, just to experiment. Because to be honest, I don't think as an artist I'm ever really going to know who I am. You know,
Hmm.
some people have made comments that they like the aesthetic, they think I have a very strong character, but to be honest with you, I don't know who my character is. And I enjoy that because in my song Disorder, I do talk about bipolar, and I do have, you know, changes in mood and that. And I feel that relates to my life way more than I give it credit. And it relates to my music. And nearly this whole theme of changing genres and that is relating to the bipolar, you know, and I like to express that through my singles. That doesn't matter what it is, it's going to be different in some way, but the underlining theme is, yes, the sadness or the deeper experiences. And that's kind of how I relate to it.
Yeah. And actually, I was wondering then, like when it comes to kind of writing songs about bipolar and it's the kind of it's the intent to offer kind of I guess relatability to people who are listening to the song, or is it just more therapeutic in nature? I was wondering how much kind of like is for your own benefit first, and much is kind of like for other people's benefit, I
It's
guess.
definitely both, but since a very young age, I've always wanted it for other people's benefits. You know, I remember before, you know, when I was going through some very dark things, I tried to find songs that relate to how I'm feeling. And a lot of the
Yeah.
time I couldn't find songs that were really getting out, you know, exactly what I was going through. And I know I'm not the only one. So I want to make songs that just get to the point and really relate. So, because music can help. Music does help. Music is such a great way to vent and to feel like you are being heard, even if it's not in the third person. So definitely just to help people.
What I always like about music, as you were kind of mentioned there, is a means of venting. Is that I really like when music kind of lays dormant in your mind, like you hear a song at a certain point in your life, and you know the lyrics maybe seem kind of abstract, or you know kind of I don't know, they don't really relate to you, and then at a later point in your life, an event will happen, and suddenly the lyrics make sense. I don't know if you have that kind of intent too, like of maybe you know, kind of getting people to listen to your music through the kind of eponymous sort of, you know, poppy catchy music, and you know, then like at a later date, if someone needs to, I don't know, it will resonate for some people, I guess.
Absolutely, yes, 100%. It's see at the moment with the whole rebranding and everything, I'm trying to gain an audience. And Love Me Better, although yes, it was a very personal song when I wrote it, but the whole production and poppy electro pop twist on it is just trying to reach a broader audience, you know, to see
Yeah,
maybe if you give my Spotify a follow and now the next song that you hear, it's not going to be like that, but it might be something that you need to hear, you know.
yeah.
So it's appealing to the masses currently to get the audience. And then at a later date, if they want to listen to my other stuff and they find it's something therapeutic for them, then I've done my job.
Yeah, and then I guess one of the final things I'll ask you is, when it kind of comes to, as you mentioned, like you're kind of like, you have so many genres and you're just like, you know, kind of just making whatever you want. And I think there's a real sense of like that kind of freedom in your music when you listen to it, where like I said, of the three singles released so far, it just really feels like, oh, what am I going to get next? Kind of, it's like a lucky dip or something, like a musical lucky dip. And what I was wondering is like, then when it kind of comes to actually perform the songs live, say like in like for a gig, like how do you kind of arrange them into a set?
Yes, so this is actually has to be a part of my final year project in college, but I I do relate it in a way that it's an experience. So for Love Me Better, now that I have the song, it ends on such a positive note. I begin my gigs with the most slow and depressing of them all, let's say Fool. And as it goes on, I have songs that nearly will tell the story, a story of grief nearly. So the initial, the shock, and then the anger that comes through with disorder, and then you know it just moves in that way. And then the final part of letting it go would be To Love Me Better. And it's where I'd rather take my audience on a journey at my gigs than just something you get up and dance to and drink a few drinks to. That's not the point of my music. My point is to bring people on an emotional journey, and at the end to have them either think or feel something different.
Yeah, I was wondering about the actual kind of the theatric aspect of your music and of your live performances. So, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you do work with film scores. Is that correct?
I do, yes, I do. I do a lot of film scores. I'm very proud to say that I have done one or two feature films when I was only about 21, which was a massive step.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I am hoping to release. It's the one album I will release is a piano album, full of compositions, new age compositions, orchestral pieces, and things like that. Very contemporary. But yeah, I enjoy doing them.
You think like when it comes to relating music to a film, for example, you have to kind of think about like, okay, the mood of the scene and kind of, things like even like characters' motivations, I guess what your piece is kind of adding to the scene. Do you think that kind of like theatrical sort of I guess relationship with music, do you think that kind of adds to your own personal music, I guess?
Yes, yes, yeah. No, it would. It would definitely because even when I was under my own name, I enjoyed doing music videos a lot with a friend of mine actually. He does them with me, but the music videos are a chance for me to basically put an image to the sound. And I've said in other interviews in the past that when I first started writing songs, my dad would help me by giving me an image. He'd say, I want you to write a song about Saturn, the planet. So I'd have to nearly personify Saturn into sound in what I thought it would be like. And then that's how, even when I'm writing my ballads, it's not just the slow piano melodies. I'm trying to describe the feeling that's going on internally into physical sound. So yeah, it's the same thing with film. And I think that's why I enjoy film so much because it's something I've always done. So when I'm seeing sad scenes or scary scenes and that, I have so much freedom and it allows me to just express it.
Yeah. And then actually one fun thing I'd like to ask, so we mentioned that you work with Richard Pryor, the producer. So I was wondering, like, what do you think that kind of dynamic adds when you're kind of like working with an external producer to kind of elevate that sense or that feeling you want to create?
It helps. It helps a lot. Now, Richard Power is one of the best producers I have ever worked with. He's just fantastic at vocals and really understanding the direction that I want to go in personally. And he helped me with Fool, he helped me with Disorder, and he helped me with Love Me Better. Like he's done three of my songs with me. And I feel it's very easy to communicate with him, and he has his own style and he plays music himself, and he's very in the pop kind of genre. So when I'm wanting to appeal to the masses but I'm not really that good at using the new technology, the kind of use of bass and synth, but that's his expertise. So when he helps out, he kind of helps my music take that further step into new age.
Do you think that's kind of an important dynamic, I guess, between producer and artist in the sense that, I think some people can kind of detach production from the artistic endeavor. You know what I mean? Like I think some people think about it as the technological sort of part you have to kind of just work with. But I find like it actually is an extension of the songs themselves in a lot of ways, of the artistic intent of the songs themselves. When it kind of comes to working with like a long time kind of collaborator like that, or a consistent collaborator like that, do you find that benefits in the sense that like maybe your thoughts become kind of aligned, or kind of your like there's a maybe a better, more clear, distinct understanding of what your intent is from the get-go?
Yes, yes, there is. And I think for any musician or band, be very specific about the type of producer that you want to work with. Make sure you understand what it is that their expertise is. I have worked with three in the past, and I find that Richard is the best linked to me currently, for
Mhm.
this whole new age sound and the direction I'm going in. But if I was to write like I said, a metal song, I have a different producer that I prefer to go to for that. So for whatever your genre is, like there's so many producers to, but just make sure that they understand your creative vision for the song or for the album, and that you pick correctly. Because if I had gone to the old producer with Love Me Better, it would have just been a piano ballad and maybe with some bass or something, where Richard really brought it to life with the use of synth and drums and the drop and all that type of stuff. So
One final thing I'll ask you is there any intent for an EP or an album, or are you happy just with releasing singles for the immediate future?
there's definitely going to be an EP. I've spoken about an EP since I was about 15, but there definitely will be. I have some ideas to go along the route of nearly Sigur Rós vibes. Sigur Rós meets DOLLFACE. And I do want to put an EP, but like I said, you know, I want to be definitely sure that the 3 or 4 songs that I have are something that I'm very proud to have on an EP. And I'll have to break out of this whole cycle of, you know, the pick and mix that of genres. I'll have to stick to somewhat the same genre for the EP. Just for myself. Otherwise, I think it'd be a little bit too strange, you know, to have an EP where things are completely contrasting.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think I've asked everything I have to ask. Is there anything you'd like to add before wrap up? Or
No, no, that's it really.
thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Aaron. It was fantastic to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We hope you enjoyed and stay tuned for more.